That morning, Darius Mitchell did not go to the beach looking for love. He went there to escape the pressure, the threat of unemployment, and the loneliness that had stretched on for years since his marriage collapsed. A 34-year-old black single dad, he felt every bit of that weight sitting on his chest. But fate placed before him the one person he least wanted to see right now, Avery Collins, the ice-cold CEO who happened to be his direct boss. No power suit, no authority, just two stripped-down humans standing before the ocean. And when Avery let one small sentence slip from her lips, Darius felt his heart surrender. Could a single sentence really change everything? Darius had left the house before his daughter woke up. Maya was staying with his sister for the weekend, which meant he had 2 days to figure out how to explain that Daddy might not have a job next month. The meeting was scheduled for Monday. Performance review, they called it. Everyone knew what that meant. He drove to the beach because it was the only place that felt far enough from everything. The office, the apartment that still smelled like his ex-wife's perfume, even though she had been gone for over a year, the stack of bills on the kitchen counter, the custody papers his lawyer kept telling him to sign, and the framed photo of a smiling black father and daughter on the wall that reminded him what he was fighting for. He parked near the empty lot and walked toward the water, his dark brown hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. The sand was cold under his shoes. It was early, barely past 7, and the beach was deserted except for a few joggers in the distance. Darius found a spot near the rocks and sat down. The waves rolled in with a rhythm that felt almost cruel in its consistency. Everything else in his life had fallen apart, but the ocean just kept going. He had not always been this version of himself. There was a time when he believed hard work would be enough. That showing up every day, doing his job well, being a decent man, would protect him from failure. But his marriage had ended anyway. His boss had stopped returning his emails, and now he sat on a beach at dawn, 34 years old, and wondering when exactly he had become so tired. The sound of footsteps on sand pulled him from his thoughts. Darius glanced up and saw a woman walking along the shoreline, barefoot, her shoes dangling from one hand. She wore dark jeans rolled up to her calves and a simple gray sweater. Her hair was loose, catching the wind. Something about the way she moved made him look twice. Then his stomach dropped. It was Avery Collins, his CEO, his boss, the woman who had built a reputation for being untouchable, unshakable, and completely ruthless when it came to business. The woman who had barely looked at him during the last board meeting, even though he had been the one who put together the entire presentation. Darius froze. He considered getting up and leaving before she noticed him, but it was too late. Avery had stopped walking. She was looking at him for a long moment. Neither of them moved. The distance between them was maybe 20 feet, close enough that he could see the expression on her face. It was not the cold, controlled mask she wore at the office. It was something else. Something that looked almost like exhaustion. Avery walked towards him slowly, her bare feet leaving prints in the wet sand. She stopped a few feet away and looked out at the ocean instead of at him. Darius did not know what to say. This was not supposed to happen. They were not supposed to exist in the same world outside of conference rooms and quarterly reports. "I didn't expect to see anyone here," Avery said finally. Her voice was quieter than it ever was at work, softer. Darius cleared his throat. "Same." She nodded, still not looking at him. For a moment it seemed like she might just walk away, but then she sat down on the sand a few feet from him, setting her shoes beside her. The gesture felt strange, almost vulnerable. Avery Collins did not sit on cold beach sand. She sat in leather chairs behind massive desks and made decisions that affected hundreds of people. But here, she was just a woman in a gray sweater, staring at the water like it might have answers she could not find anywhere else. "I come here sometimes," Avery said, "when I need to think." Darius did not respond right away. He was trying to process the fact that his boss, the woman who controlled his professional fate, was sitting next to him on a public beach at 7 o'clock in the morning. It felt surreal, wrong even, like he had stepped into some alternate version of reality where roles and hierarchies did not matter. And as a black man who had spent his whole career calculating how he moved in corporate spaces, The sight of his CEO barefoot in the sand beside him made the world tilt just a little. "I didn't know you lived near here," Darius said because he had to say something. "I don't. I drove an hour to get here." Avery turned her head slightly, glancing at him for the first time. "I needed to be somewhere nobody would recognize me." The irony of that statement hung in the air between them. Darius almost laughed, but the sound caught in his throat. "Guess that didn't work out." Avery's mouth twitched, almost like a smile. Almost. "No, I guess it didn't." They sat in silence for a while. The waves kept coming. The wind picked up, cold enough that Darius pulled his jacket tighter around himself. He wondered if he should leave, if staying here was crossing some invisible line. But Avery did not seem to care. She just kept looking at the ocean, her expression unreadable. "Can I ask you something?" Avery said suddenly. Darius felt his chest tighten. This was it. She was going to bring up work. The missed deadlines, the mistakes he had made, the reason he was probably getting fired on Monday. "Sure," he said, even though he did not want to hear it. Avery was quiet for a moment, like she was choosing her words carefully. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, softer, almost hesitant. "You look exhausted," she said. "Like really exhausted. The kind that doesn't go away with sleep." She turned to face him fully now, and Darius saw something in her eyes he had never seen before. Concern. Real, unfiltered concern. "Has anyone actually asked if you're okay?" The question hit him like a physical blow. Darius opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. His throat felt tight. His eyes stung. He looked away quickly back at the water because he could not let her see how much that sentence had just broken something inside him. No one had asked him that. Not his ex-wife, who had walked out without a second thought. Not his sister, who loved him but was too busy managing her own life. Not his coworkers, who saw him as competition or dead weight, depending on the day. Not even his lawyer, who only cared about getting signatures on documents. No one had asked if he was okay. And the fact that it was Avery Collins, of all people, who finally said those words out loud made it hurt even more. "I'm fine," Darius said, but his voice cracked on the last word. Avery did not push. She did not ask follow-up questions or offer empty reassurances. She just nodded slowly, like she understood exactly what "I'm fine" really meant. Like she had said the same thing to herself 1,000 times. "I'm not," Avery said quietly. "In case you were wondering, I'm not okay either." Darius looked at her, surprised. Avery Collins did not admit weakness. She did not confess vulnerability to employees. She certainly did not sit on beaches and talk about her feelings with people who worked under her. But here she was. And for the first time since Darius had started working for her, he saw her as something other than a title. She was just a person. A tired, lonely person who had driven an hour to escape her own life, just like he had. "Why are you telling me this?" Darius asked. Avery looked down at her hands, picking at a loose thread on her sweater. "I don't know. Maybe because you're the first person I've talked to in weeks who isn't trying to get something from me." She glanced up at him. "Or maybe because we're both sitting on a freezing beach at 7 o'clock in the morning, which probably means we're in the same kind of mess." Darius felt something shift in his chest. It was not attraction, not yet. It was something quieter, recognition, the feeling of being seen by someone who understood what it was like to carry weight no one else could see. He had two choices. He could stand up, make an excuse, and walk away, keep the distance, protect himself from whatever this was. Or he could stay. He could let this moment exist, even though it felt dangerous and confusing, and completely outside the bounds of what was supposed to happen between a boss and an employee. Darius stayed. "I think I'm about to lose my job," he said. The words came out before he could stop them. "There's a meeting on Monday, performance review. I know what that means." Avery did not react the way he expected. She did not look shocked or uncomfortable. She just nodded like she had already known. "I know about the meeting," she said. "I'm the one who called it." Darius felt his stomach drop again. Of course she knew. She was his boss. She was probably the one who had decided to let him go. "But that's not why I'm here," Avery added quickly. "I didn't come here to talk about work. I came here because I needed to remember what it feels like to be a person instead of a position." She looked at him directly now, and her eyes were steady. "And for what it's worth, Darius, you're not losing your job. Not if I have anything to say about it." Darius stared at her, not sure if he had heard that right. What? You're good at what you do, Avery said simply. Better than most people in that office. The meeting on Monday is about restructuring, not firing. I need someone I can trust on the new team. Someone who actually gives a damn about the work. She tilted her head slightly. That's you if you want it. Darius did not know what to say. Relief and confusion and something else he could not name all crashed together in his chest. He had come to this beach expecting nothing, and now Avery Collins was sitting next to him, telling him his job was safe, telling him she trusted him, telling him she saw him as more than just another name on a spreadsheet. And that sentence, the one she had asked so casually a few minutes ago, still echoed in his head. Has anyone actually asked if you're okay? For the first time in years, Darius felt like someone had. Monday came faster than Darius wanted. He spent the weekend with Maya, taking her to the park and pretending everything was fine. She was 6 years old and still believed her father had all the answers. Darius did not have the heart to tell her he barely had any. When he dropped Maya back at his sister's place Sunday night, Sarah gave him a long look. She knew something was wrong, but she did not ask. Darius was grateful for that. He did not know how to explain what had happened at the beach, or why he had spent the last 2 days thinking about a conversation that should have stayed buried. The office felt different on Monday morning. Darius walked through the glass doors at 8:30, coffee in hand, and headed straight to his desk. The meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock. He had an hour and a half to prepare himself for whatever was coming, even though Avery had told him his job was safe. He wanted to believe her, but trust did not come easy anymore, especially for a black man who had learned the hard way that promises in corporate life could be pulled out from under him without warning. At 9:45, his phone buzzed, a calendar notification. The meeting had been moved up to 9:50. Darius grabbed his notebook and headed to the conference room on the 5th floor, his stomach tight. Avery was already there when he arrived. She sat at the head of the table, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. She wore a black blazer and her hair was pulled back in a way that made her look untouchable again. The woman from the beach, the one who had admitted she was not okay, was gone. This was Avery Collins, CEO, cold, professional, in control. Darius sat down across from her. There were 2 other people in the room, both from HR. They smiled at him politely, but Darius could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on his chest. Avery started the meeting without preamble. She talked about the company's restructuring plan, about shifting priorities and new team dynamics. She mentioned budget cuts and efficiency improvements, and then she said his name. Darius Mitchell will be moving into a senior project lead role, Avery said, her tone even. Effective immediately. He'll be managing the new client acquisition strategy and reporting directly to me. Darius blinked. Senior project lead, reporting directly to her. This was not just keeping his job. This was a promotion. One of the HR reps slid a folder across the table. Darius opened it and saw the offer letter, the new salary, the updated benefits package. The number at the top was 30% higher than what he was making now. Contingent on your acceptance, Avery added, looking at him directly for the first time since he had entered the room. You have until the end of day Wednesday to decide. Darius nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The meeting wrapped up quickly after that. The HR reps shook his hand and congratulated him. Avery gathered her papers and left without another word. Darius sat alone in the conference room for a few minutes, staring at the folder in his hands. He should have felt relieved, grateful, but all he felt was confusion. Avery had just handed him everything he needed to stabilize his life. A secure job, a raise that would let him stop worrying about Maya's school tuition, a role that would give him credibility again. But she had not looked at him the way she had on the beach. She had not asked if he was okay. She had been professional, distant, exactly what a CEO should be. And Darius realized that the version of Avery he had met on Saturday morning might have been a fluke. A moment of weakness, she regretted. He left the conference room and went back to his desk. He tried to focus on work, but his mind kept drifting. By lunchtime, he gave up and went for a walk. He needed air. He needed to think. Darius ended up at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the office. He ordered something he did not really want and sat by the window watching people pass by. He thought about Maya, about the promotion, about the fact that he had a chance to rebuild his life into something stable. And then he thought about Avery's question. Has anyone actually asked if you're okay? The truth was he was not okay. He had not been okay for a long time. And for a brief moment on that beach, he had felt like maybe, just maybe, someone understood that. But now, sitting in this coffee shop with a job offer in his bag and no idea what to do with it, Darius felt more alone than ever. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. We need to talk after work. Same place as Saturday, please. Darius stared at the screen. There was no name, but he knew who it was. Avery did not sign her texts. She did not need to. He typed back a single word. Okay. The rest of the day dragged. Darius went through the motions, answering emails, attending meetings, pretending he was focused, but all he could think about was that text. Same place as Saturday, the beach. She wanted to meet him at the beach. By the time 5 o'clock came, Darius was already in his car. He drove the same route he had taken on Saturday, the highway stretching out in front of him, the ocean waiting at the end. He did not know what Avery wanted to say. Part of him hoped she would explain. Part of him hoped she would not. When he arrived, the beach was quieter than it had been on Saturday morning. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the sand. Darius parked and walked toward the water. He saw Avery standing near the rocks, her back to him, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something together. Darius stopped a few feet away. He did not say anything. He just waited. Avery turned around slowly. She looked tired, not the polished, controlled version from the meeting, the real one, the one who had driven an hour to escape her own life. I owe you an explanation, Avery said. Darius shook his head. You don't owe me anything. You gave me a promotion. That's more than I expected. That's not what I'm talking about. Avery's voice was quiet, almost fragile. I'm talking about this morning. The way I acted in that meeting, like nothing happened between us. Nothing did happen, Darius said, even though he did not believe it. Avery looked at him for a long moment, and then she laughed. It was a bitter sound, hollow. You really think that? Darius did not answer. He could not. I've spent the last 2 days trying to convince myself that Saturday was a mistake, Avery said. That I let my guard down and said things I shouldn't have said. That the smart thing to do was to keep this professional. To give you the promotion you deserve and pretend we never had that conversation. So why didn't you? Darius asked. Because I can't stop thinking about it. Avery's voice cracked slightly. I can't stop thinking about the fact that for the first time in years, I felt like someone saw me. Not the CEO, not the woman who has her life together, just me. And I'm terrified of what that means. Darius felt something break open in his chest. He wanted to tell her he felt the same way. That her question on the beach had undone something inside him he did not know how to put back together, but he was afraid. Afraid of being wrong. Afraid of not being enough. This can't work, Darius said finally. You're my boss. I work for you. There are rules. I know. Avery looked down at her hands. That's why I'm telling you this now, before anything happens. Before we cross a line we can't come back from. She looked up at him and her eyes were raw. I need you to know that the promotion is real. It's not about this. It's not about us. You earned it. You're good at what you do, Darius. Better than most people I've worked with. And I need someone I can trust on this team. But Darius could hear the unspoken word hanging between them. But I also need you to know that what I said on Saturday was real, too. Avery's voice was steady now, deliberate. I wasn't just venting to a random stranger. I was talking to you because something about you made me feel safe enough to be honest. And I don't know what to do with that. Darius did not know what to say. He stood there, the wind pulling at his jacket, the ocean crashing behind him, and felt the weight of every choice pressing down on him. He could walk away. He could take the promotion, keep his head down, and pretend this conversation never happened. It would be safer that way, simpler, but there was another option, one that terrified him more than anything. What if we kept it separate? Darius heard himself say. Work is work. This is this. Avery looked at him sharply. You think that's possible? I don't know, Darius admitted. But I think we both deserve a chance to find out. Avery was quiet for a long time. The sun was almost gone now, the sky turning purple and orange. Darius could see the conflict playing out on her face, the fear and the hope tangled together. "I can't promise this will be easy," Avery said finally. "I can't promise I won't mess it up. I've already failed at this once." "So have I," Darius said. Avery looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her expression softened. "My ex-husband left because he couldn't handle being married to someone more successful than him. He needed me to be smaller, quieter. I spent 2 years trying to make myself less so he would stay. And when he finally left anyway, I swore I would never let anyone make me feel like that again." Darius felt the weight of that confession settle between them. He understood what she was really saying. She was afraid of losing herself again, afraid of letting someone in, only to be told she was too much. "I'm not him," Darius said quietly. "I know," Avery said, "but I'm still afraid." Darius took a step closer. "I'm afraid too. I've been a single dad for over a year, trying to keep my life together and failing most of the time. My ex-wife walked out because I wasn't enough for her, and I've spent every day since then convinced she was right, that I'm not enough, that I'll never be enough." He stopped, his throat tight. This was the truth he'd been carrying around for months, the weight he could not put down, and now he was handing it to Avery, the one person who could use it against him if she wanted. "So if we do this," Darius continued, "if we try, I need you to know that I'm terrified I'm going to let you down, that one day you're going to wake up and realize I'm not worth the risk." Avery shook her head slowly. "You don't get it, do you?" "Get what?" "You're already worth the risk." Avery's voice was firm now, certain. "You were worth it the moment you stayed on that beach instead of running away. The moment you told me the truth, instead of pretending everything was fine." Darius felt something shift. The fear was still there, sharp and real. But so was something else. Hope, fragile and uncertain. "But we keep work separate," Avery said, her tone turning businesslike, like she was negotiating a contract. "What happens at the office stays at the office. No special treatment, no crossing lines. If anyone asks, you got the promotion because you earned it, which you did." "Agreed," Darius said. "And if this doesn't work," Avery added, her voice quieter now, "if we try and it falls apart, we walk away. Clean. No drama, no resentment." "Agreed." Avery nodded like she was sealing a deal. But then her expression softened again, and she looked at him the way she had on Saturday, like she was seeing him, really seeing him. A black single dad standing on the sand, trying to believe he could be more than just someone's backup plan. "I don't know how to do this," Avery said. "I haven't done this in a long time." "Neither have I," Darius admitted. They stood there in the fading light, two people who had spent so long protecting themselves that they had forgotten what it felt like to let someone in. The space between them felt smaller now, charged with possibility. "One step at a time," Darius said. "One step at a time," Avery echoed. And for the first time in a long time, Darius let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he was allowed to have this. 3 weeks passed. Darius settled into his new role, managing projects that actually mattered, working late hours that felt purposeful instead of desperate. The raise meant he could finally breathe. He paid off 2 months of overdue bills and put the rest into Maya's college fund. His sister noticed the change but did not ask questions. Darius was grateful for that too. At the office, he and Avery maintained the boundaries they had agreed on. She treated him the way she treated every other senior lead. Professional, direct, fair. They had meetings twice a week to discuss strategy, and Darius presented his work with the same focus he gave everything else. No one suspected anything. There was nothing to suspect. But outside the office, things were different. They met at the beach most weekends, always early in the morning when the world was still asleep. They talked about things that had nothing to do with work. Avery told him about the pressure of running a company at 32, about the board members who questioned every decision she made because she was young and female. Darius told her about Maya, about the guilt he felt every time he dropped her off at his sister's place, about the fear that he was failing her the same way he had failed at his marriage. Sometimes Darius would reach for Avery's hand as they walked along the shoreline, and Avery would let him. But they kept these moments small, careful, testing the boundaries of what they were building together. They just existed in those stolen hours. Two people trying to figure out if what they felt was real or just the result of being lonely at the same time. But the distance was starting to hurt. Darius felt it every time they said goodbye, every time Avery walked back to her car and drove an hour home alone. He felt it in the meetings when she looked at him across the conference table and he had to pretend she was just his boss. He felt it when he went home to his apartment, the evening light catching on the photo of his deep brown hand holding Maya as a baby, and realized he was not any less lonely than he had been before. Avoidance was not protecting him. It was just making everything worse. Darius knew something had to change when Maya asked him a question he did not know how to answer. It was a Sunday afternoon and they were sitting on the couch watching cartoons. Maya's tight curls were pressed against his chest as she leaned into him. She turned to him suddenly, her small face serious. "Daddy, are you sad?" she asked. Darius looked at his daughter, startled. "What makes you think that?" Maya shrugged. "You look sad like when Mommy left, but different." Darius felt his chest tighten. He had been so careful. He thought he had been hiding it well enough that Maya would not notice, but kids saw everything. They felt everything. "I'm okay, sweetheart," Darius said, pulling her close. "I'm just figuring some things out." "Is it about the lady?" Maya asked. Darius froze. "What lady?" "The one you talk to on the phone sometimes when you think I'm asleep." Maya looked up at him with her wide brown eyes. "Is she nice?" Darius did not know what to say. He had not realized Maya had heard his late-night conversations with Avery, the quiet phone calls that stretched past midnight when neither of them could sleep. He had thought he was being careful. "She's very nice," Darius said finally, "but it's complicated." "Why?" Maya asked in the way only a 6-year-old could. Simple, direct, impossible to dodge. "Because sometimes grown-ups make things more complicated than they need to be," Darius admitted. Maya thought about that for a moment, then leaned her head against his shoulder. "I think you should stop being sad, Daddy. You're allowed to be happy." The words hit Darius harder than anything Avery had said. "You're allowed to be happy." Such a simple statement. But Darius had not believed it in so long. He had convinced himself that happiness was something other people deserved, not him. Not a guy who'd already failed once, as a husband, as a provider, as a black man trying to prove he could hold everything together and watching it still fall apart. But Maya believed he deserved it, and maybe that was enough to start. That night after Maya was asleep, Darius called Avery. She answered on the second ring. "I can't do this anymore," Darius said. There was a long silence on the other end. When Avery spoke, her voice was careful. "Can't do what?" "This," Darius swallowed. "The distance, the pretending." He leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. "I thought keeping things separate would make it easier, but it's not. It's just making me more alone." Avery did not respond right away. Darius could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, could imagine her sitting in her apartment trying to decide what to say. "I know," Avery said finally. "I feel it too." "So what do we do?" Darius asked. I don't know," Avery admitted. "I've been trying to convince myself that keeping my distance is the smart thing to do. That if I just stay in control, I can protect myself from getting hurt again. But the truth is, I'm already hurt. I'm already in too deep." Darius closed his eyes. "Me too." "I need to tell you something," Avery said, her voice quiet but steady. "That question I asked you on the beach about whether anyone had asked if you were okay, that wasn't just me making conversation. That was me seeing something in you that I recognized in myself. That was me reaching out, because I needed to know I wasn't the only one who felt that way." "I know," Darius said. No, you don't," Avery continued. "You think it was an impulse, a moment of weakness, but it wasn't. I meant every word, and I've spent the last 3 weeks trying to convince myself that I didn't, because it would be easier that way. But I can't lie to myself anymore." Darius felt something break open inside him. Relief, fear, hope, all of it crashing together. "I don't know how to do this," Darius said. "I don't know how to believe that I'm good enough for someone like you." "Someone like me?" Avery's voice was sharp now, almost angry. "Darius, I'm not some perfect person. I'm just someone who's been pretending to have it all together for so long that I forgot what it feels like to be real. You make me feel real. You make me feel like I don't have to be the CEO every second of the day, and that scares me more than anything. Darius opened his eyes. Then maybe we're both scared for the same reason. Maybe, Avery agreed, but I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of letting fear make decisions for me. So, what do? Darius asked again. We try, Avery said simply. We stop pretending this isn't happening. We stop hiding. We figure it out as we go. What about work? Darius asked. Well, work stays work, Avery said. We already agreed on that, but everything else, we stop holding back. Darius felt his heart pounding in his chest. This was the moment, the choice. He could say no, he could protect himself, or he could take the risk. Okay, Darius said. Okay? Avery sounded surprised, like she had expected him to argue. Yeah, okay, let's try. There was a long silence, and then Avery laughed. It was a real laugh, not the bitter, hollow sound from before. It was the sound of relief. I'll see you Saturday, Avery said. Same place. Same place, Darius agreed. When he hung up, Darius sat in the quiet of his apartment and let himself believe for the first time in years that maybe he was allowed to have this, that maybe he was enough. Not because of his job or his title or anything he had accomplished, but because someone saw him, truly saw him, and chose to stay anyway. Saturday came. Darius woke up early before his alarm went off. He had not slept much, his mind running through every possible outcome. But for once, the anxiety felt different. It was not the paralyzing fear he had carried for months. It was anticipation, the nervous energy of standing at the edge of something new. He made coffee, checked on Maya, who was still asleep at his sister's place for the weekend, and drove to the beach. The sun was just beginning to rise when he arrived, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Darius parked in the same spot he had that first morning and walked toward the water. Avery was already there. She stood near the rocks, barefoot again, her shoes dangling from her hand. But this time, when she saw him approaching, she smiled. It was a small smile, tentative, but it was real. Darius stopped beside her, looking out at the ocean. The waves rolled in with the same steady rhythm they always had. But everything else felt different now. I wasn't sure you'd come, Avery said quietly. I almost didn't, Darius admitted. I kept thinking about all the ways this could go wrong, all the reasons I should just stay home and keep things safe. What changed your mind? Avery asked. Darius turned to look at her. My daughter told me I'm allowed to be happy, and I realize she's right. I've spent so long convincing myself I don't deserve it that I forgot what it feels like to even try. Avery nodded slowly, like she understood exactly what he meant. My therapist told me something similar last week. She said, I've been using control as a shield for so long that I've forgotten how to just let myself feel things. How to trust that I won't fall apart if I'm not in charge of everything. Are you scared? Darius asked. Terrified, Avery said. But I'm here anyway. Darius reached out and took her hand the same way he had 3 weeks ago. This time, Avery's fingers tightened around his, holding on. So, what now? Darius asked. Avery looked at him, and her expression softened in a way he had never seen before. Not the CEO, not the woman who had to have all the answers. Just Avery, vulnerable and honest and real. Now, we take it one day at a time, Avery said. We don't rush. We don't pretend to have it all figured out. We just show up for each other and we see where it goes. I can do that, Darius said. They stood there together, watching the sun rise over the water. Darius thought about the man he had been 3 weeks ago, sitting on the same beach, convinced his life was falling apart. He thought about the fear and the loneliness and the certainty that he would never be enough. As a man, as a black father trying to raise his daughter right, as someone who had already watched one life crumble. And then he thought about Avery's question. Has anyone actually asked if you're okay? That one sentence had changed everything. Not because it fixed him, not because it made the fear disappear, but because it reminded him that being seen, truly seen by another person, was worth the risk of getting hurt. Thank you, Darius said suddenly. Avery looked at him surprised. For what? For asking if I was okay, Darius said. No one had asked me that in a long time, and I didn't realize how much I needed to hear it until you said it. Avery's eyes softened and she squeezed his hand tighter. You asked me too. You just didn't use words. Darius understood what she meant. Sometimes the most important questions were the ones asked through presence, through showing up, through choosing to stay when it would have been easier to walk away. They turned and walked along the shoreline together, their footprints side by side in the wet sand. The morning stretched out before them, full of possibility. There would be hard conversations ahead, boundaries to navigate, fears to face. There would be moments when the balance between CEO and employee, between a black single dad and the woman who held his career in her hands, would feel impossibly delicate. But for now, in this moment, they were just two people who had been brave enough to let themselves be seen. And that was enough.